Welcome everyone to the April Business Insights Online Network interview. This month, in Pete's absence, I will be chairing a Q&A debate about resilience and leadership. So I'd like to introduce our panelists this afternoon, Al Ritchie and Carl Jones. Good afternoon both, and if you could just give it a quick intro before we kick off with the questions. Al, if you could go first.
Of course. I'm a business and executive coach, primarily working with teams and companies of all sizes, from the MSME up to the larger end of the SME bracket, helping the teams to improve their performance, the companies to improve their output, and so on and so forth.
Great, thank you. And over to you, Carl.
Yes, hello everybody. My name's Carl Jones. I have my own business called Elevated Training, and what I do is a training and consultancy area where businesses are struggling to either retain staff or have issues in the workplace that they want addressing, and I'm quite happily to be the person to go in and sort it out for them. That's the nooks and crannies of what I do.
Superb. That's great. Thank you both. And now on to the first question. Fairly simple one, really. And I'll ask Al first. Al, what is business resilience?
It's an interesting question to start off with, and I'm not saying that because I'm trying to be clever, because there are an awful lot of definitions of what business resilience is. The one that I tend to go for is the ability of an organization to quickly adapt to disruptions while maintaining continuous business operations and safeguarding people and assets. The point being in that bit that it's not about only recovering from a fall, it's about maintaining and taking advantage. And the nearest I could get to that in old terms would be continuity planning.
Great. Thank you very much. Carl, what's your take?
Mine's slightly different to Alistair's, and I do kind of go a little bit against what Alistair was saying, and I'm sorry to be one of those thorns in the sides, I'm sorry. But resilience is about how you manage things in life, and things happen to everybody. Independently in your own personal life or in your business, it is going to happen. You just think about whatever happens every single day. First of all, you lose customers. These are the things that, people worry about. You lose customers, you have problems with staff, you have problems in the business, you have problems with supply chains, you have problems here, you have problems there, everything is just a problem. And then those sorts of things you're looking at, then suddenly you get smacked in the face with something like COVID, and it completely wipes out people's businesses. Now, it's things like that that people have no control of, things that they can't see that's happening, and it's just awful. Now, what I think resilience is more about when you get hit by something big like that, and I say COVID, recession, and all the big things, it's kind of looming, but when they hit you, they really do take your legs. The resilience is about how you get back on your feet quickly, and it's how, if you want to do sort of elastic-y kind of way, about how you return to your previous operating model as quickly as possible, or be able to adapt into something that you can actually take forward again in a positive and hopefully profitable way. But it's about getting your business back on your feet again. That's my take on resilience.
Great. And I guess there's that word that people were using an awful lot almost exactly 3 years ago called pivot. How you pivot your business, how do everything so you can stay in business if the world's turned upside down. Some businesses might reinvent themselves and come back to something else. Very interesting.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, I'm only getting half of the words you're saying.
Yeah, you're a little bit broken.
Oh, right. Okay. Don't quite know what to do with that.
This is resilience, people. This is how we adapt and overcome. We have a problem with IT. We find that it's a little bit embarrassing, but we work through it and we get back on track again. Go on, guys. Show us how it's done. This is our resilience. I love it how you...
So far.
There we go. That's
cool.
Exactly what resilience is.
Absolutely. Resilience in that case was taking my headphones out and just going straight into the speaker which has now woken the cat up that's just over there. Great, fantastic. Next question is, why are businesses struggling with resilience? Carl, you go first on this.
Again, this is probably going to upset many people, but I really don't care, because this is what I do and this is what I need to tell people. People get stuck in a way. They open up a business and they think, do you know what? This is what we do and this is how we manage. The problem is that life changes, people change, society changes. And perfect example of this, people are still spending money in advertising in newspapers and they believe this is what's going to bring in people. And what they don't understand is that society's changed now. And if you really want to make a splash, you get yourself on social media. And the biggest one at the moment is TikTok, even though we talk about the Chinese and not really wanting to get engaged with that because obviously the issues around security and everything. But if you want to make a big splash, you've got to be able to adapt and change. Now, in my thought process of this is why companies are struggling is because they've always done it this way. They've always had a result from doing that, and they're not able to either change, adapt, or amend their ways. And that's where your resilience is beginning to get very thin, which is when you're not able to adapt, you're not able to change, and you're not able to take your business forward. And this is exactly the same as what's happening in staffing matters. And I'm sorry if I'm taking the floor a little bit because I'm quite passionate about this, is that they've always believed that staff come in to do a job. They get given a job to do, they get on and do it. Well, the problem is that staff now are looking for that little extra. They want something different. They want to be able to be challenged with something, and including having a dog come in on the call. Look, here we go. Yeah, we've got to manage that as well. Sorry about this. Get down, you. So what I talk about is how can you challenge your team, get them engaged, make sure they don't feel like they're being overwhelmed by something, but actually feel like they're delivering something that's worthwhile for the business. The resilience takes their staff with them and they're able to adapt and change. And for me, I think they just miss that essential part, which is the failure to adapt.
Okay, I guess every company is going to adapt in different ways. And I take your point about social media. I'm not sure every business will be successful by spouting.
As an example, that's all it was.
Their ways on TikTok. But, you know, very, very, very valid point. What about yourself, Al? Why are businesses struggling with resilience?
A lot of the stuff that Carl says, I completely agree with them there. A couple of points to add to that is that you say that most companies do adapt and change. An awful lot of them don't adapt and change, or they find it staggeringly different. They've been doing the same thing for, Thomas Cook were a pretty good example, weren't they? They didn't adapt and change. And if they had adapted and changed, maybe they'd be around today in some form or other. But it's that ability to take yourself out of the space you're in and be able to look at what's going on around you, what's going on inside your company. Now, if you're hit by, Carl mentioned COVID. After COVID, we had the impact of the realization of what Brexit actually meant. So here's our biggest trading partner on the planet, and we've decided to make life more difficult for our companies. Then we've had what's happened in Ukraine. We've had the stuff with cost of living, the oil crisis, and who knows what the next one's going to be. But there's going to be one, and it's probably going to be pretty soon. And the whole lot just builds up and up and up. And you may have plans in place that are going to address one or two levels of major impact, whatever they may happen to be. But when it's 4 or 5 in a row, for a smaller company, that's just an awful lot of impact to take on board all at once. And getting your team sorted out is, again, as Carl said, it's all about the teams involved. Getting them to start working, to producing plans and so on is great, but sometimes it's really, really hard when you've got so many things hitting you at once.
And you also got to remember, sorry, jumping on the back of that, is what you got to remember is that how many businesses have basically gone up against the wall because they've refused to change. And there's only three names I've got to tilt to people. Motorola, the world's biggest producer of phones, was wiped out because they refused to change. BlackBerry, exactly the same thing. We want a little touch screen to type on. My dog's loving it over there. And they didn't want to have a proper screen like Apple. And then you talk about things like Uber and on the cusp of Amazon about to wipe out lots of small businesses. This is really going to be something quite, massive, people need to be aware of. They not only need to be able to change to it, they need to be aware of it and already start to maneuver themselves into a position where these big companies can't wipe out the small guys.
And I'm going to jump on the back of that one, because it's that awareness in the first place, because there are far too many people, and this is a visual one, I'm sorry guys, who are like this. Everything's there, it's all right ahead in front of me, it's absolutely fine, whereas opposed to they need to thinking sideways and looking at exactly at what is going on, as opposed to investigating what's going on, as opposed to just saying, yeah, everything's fine, yeah. Oh, so we haven't got a world. Yeah.
Exactly right. And the blinkerness is basically, that's your resilience. It's the lack of ability to bounce back when or if something hits them, because they're just not looking for it.
Yeah. I think the blinkeredness is great when everything's going fine, because you're just focusing on what you feel you need to focus on. But one of the great quotes I heard was, it's all very well having a crystal ball and being able to try and look into the future, but if I went to a crystal ball shop over the last 3 years and someone sold me a snow globe instead, it wouldn't make very much difference, because you just cannot tell what's going to happen, but you've got to be ready for anything.
So here you go, Guy. Here's a question for you. How many motor mechanics are there in the UK? Probably thousands. How many garages, how many independent garages are out there still dealing with petrol and diesel vehicles? And we all know what's going to happen here. We're all looking at all these electric vehicles coming on, even with the idea of hydrogen cars coming in. How many garages do you think are already beginning to think we need to start diversifying and we need to start looking at bringing in all these electric vehicles? Probably very few. And on the cusp of that, we can go the other way as well. How about all these gas boilers that is in pretty much 99.9% of everybody's homes? We're all going over, as if you listen to the government about this, we're all going to go over to these air heaters, which basically is completely different to gas. And how many gas engineers are already looking at this and starting to pivot and starting to change? It's those sorts of things that we know are coming, but we're doing nothing about it. And that's just two massive examples that is literally going to change the face of society in less than 10 years.
Yeah,
I've got an interesting addition on the one about gas boilers. Most modern gas boilers, it's a very, very cheap and simple mod to change them to hydrogen. There are experiments now with you piping hydrogen around that's been generated by from the electrolysis of water to separate out the hydrogen and oxygen, and that's being driven by an offshore or semi-offshore wind turbine. So you're getting electricity and you're getting hydrogen. The hydrogen goes through the gas network. It's in case of an ordinary gas hob, it's a case of changing the burners, the jets. That's it. It's a couple of quid. So that was not so bad. The stuff with the cars, yeah. And you said a very small number looking at it. I think you can probably go smaller than that.
There you go. And if everyone in this room is not yet looking at what AI is doing with all these chat GT, any person in, let's use this as a legal example because we know someone's on the call here, anyone in the legal business knowing that this AI stuff is around has got to start thinking about how it's going to affect them, probably in less than 2 years. And it's that kind of thing that if you are focused on it, you know what's coming and you're able to change, that's where your resilience is. If you're thinking, no, it's never going to change me, I'm going to carry on doing what I do and it's not going to affect me, then that's the problem with resilience. It's about widening people's gaze and just bringing in that information.
Yeah, and it's partly a case of necessity being the mother of invention as well. We know these things are coming. And you can't hide your head in the sand, because if you do, you're just going to get left behind. No, very, very good points, guys. I'm going to move on and ask, what could leaders look at in terms of improving resilience? This is leaders specifically looking at inspiring their workforces. And I'm going to come to you first, Carl.
So first of all, I really like working in the public sector because the public sector is stuck. It really is. It's stuck It's head in the sand, and it goes, we always have this one. We have a hierarchy. We all have banding. We all have this idea about we start at the bottom and we work our way up. And ultimately, they treat everyone at the bottom like rubbish, and then they worry about why don't they have any staff left, or why don't they have any decent staff left? And why are the managers at the top powerless to do anything? It's because they haven't engaged, they haven't looked forward in how they manage their staff. There's no external training, there's nothing out there. Take that into any other business as well, small to medium enterprises who are just trying to make a living every day. The biggest and most expensive part of anyone's business is their staff, full stop. But these are the people that you must invest in, because they're the ones that make the sales and they're the ones that make you money in your business. And it's a huge oversight from when managers and staff don't actually see their teams below them, let's say, as an actual resource that needs to be engaged with, needs to be trained, needs to have an experience, needs to feel that they're part of something. And for me, I think it's that. It's the whole idea that the people down there, let's say, are the ones that's keeping you up there. So for me, I think it's about a new look of leadership. And leadership is about leading by example. And if the leaders are doing the training, if the leaders are doing what needs to be done in the business, everyone will follow, including those that are probably problematic. But that's another story.
Interesting you should reference the public service and civil service and public bodies and everything like that at the start of that, because one of the things that you could counter against that is that they know what the progression is. So why do they need to start leading people at that level when they know that they're going to work up and gradually move through and climb the slippery pole to get to where those people are at the moment, because they'll have moved up as well. Al, what's your take on that?
It's back to the point of, well, we've always done it this way, therefore it's always going to work. Yeah. And it's not. It's as simple as that. I mean, a lot of the stuff that Carl said, I would agree with that. You have to drive things from the top. And if you don't drive it from the top, or at least have an understanding of driving from the top, then you're going to struggle. If we're just looking at improving resilience full stop, then let's say you've got an SME of, I don't know, 50, 100 people, that sort of size, then you're going to have an executive team of some sort. That team has to work as efficiently, as effectively, and be looking to the future and looking to the pennies and looking to the new markets and everything else. And the way I'd do that, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily do it through training, but I do a lot of stuff to do with team coaching, which the end result may be very similar. And that you have a team that fully understands what they're trying to do, why they're trying to do it, where they're trying to get to, and how they're trying to get to it. And that then percolates down. But by the same token, you want to encourage everybody down below to think, I hate using the phrase thinking outside the box, because I prefer to say there is no box, because it's better off throwing the box away completely. But to think about having any ideas they have, let me rephrase that, taking a what if approach. What if we did it this way? What if we did something else? And in the old days, there used to be a suggestion box often around the company, and you wrote it out, or you got somebody to type it and you stuck it in a box, and then somebody poo-pooed it later on. But if it's not poo-pooed, if it's thought about, that's a great idea, we should think about it, then you're getting that creativity coming up, which helps resilience, and you're getting the leadership coming down, which also helps. So you're getting a happy meeting in the middle.
Yeah, no, great.
And Guy, if I can jump on the back of why you say people in government bodies and everything, because you work your way up, is there's already been a change in this. So if you imagine many years ago when people started at the bottom and worked their way up, people didn't care whether the local council did anything or not, because it was quite a cheap, and I use this, it was quite a cheap organization to run. They had everything in-house, they just spent money and it just happened. Well, now these organizations are actually businesses. They actually have millions, and in some places billions of pounds to spend. And you can no longer have someone who started there as a tea person, a tea boy, and worked his way up to COO or CEO of the company, of an organization. And my analogy of that is how many people, and we're talking about a massive UK company, let's say like Intel, the top chief executive, the person that's at the very top of there, do you think they started at the bottom of the rung of the ladder? No, they went through university, they jumped straight in at some middle to probably senior manager role. And people are already beginning to recognize that because the police force are already doing it. The police force are already taking people from university and they're putting them into a fast track. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do because everyone's got their own, but they are recognizing that people with skills need to be trained. And these trained peoples and individuals not necessarily come from the bottom. I'm not saying they don't, but not necessarily come from the bottom, either the right or the wrong individuals to do that.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Good point. No, very good point. Okay. Next question. And these are going to be answered totally differently by each of you. Carl, you first. How does your own business help with developing business leaders to be more resilient and stronger?
My training consultancy really does focus on resilience of a team. It's about empowerment and giving people an opportunity to form part of the company or part of the business or part of the organization. And it's all right if they just want to turn up Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, do their bit and go home. That's fantastic. You can manage those kind of people. But it's the ones that you want to focus on that can really elevate your business. These are the ones that come in with the ideas. They get left behind. They get feeling like they're probably not actually doing the job that they should be doing because they've got so much more inside. It's those that they need to grip. And ever since, and I'm not using any recent culture or Gen Zs or Gen Xs or anybody else's, but there has been a massive change in the younger generation where they come in and they feel like they need to have more and they're not willing to start at the bottom. And I think it's there that you need to start focusing on giving these people extra responsibilities, not extra pay or anything, just allowing them a little bit of opportunity to try something new. They'll become engaged. If they do actually make a result out of what they're doing, then you can reward them. They'll feel that. They'll be able to grow and they'll be able to do much better. Now, for me, I like to go in and I like to identify those people. I like to help companies do that. But at the same time, as I say, I really enjoy my speaking and I deliver my slap technique. And I will tell you more, but Jay's got a hand up.
Well, I can ask it at the, sorry, I'm not showing. I can ask it at the end if it's better, you know, if that's the way you usually do things.
I'll go for it.
Oh, well, it was just, you were talking about electric cars and AI and things like that. Well, my experience, most of the people I know don't actually want those things. They don't want an electric car. They don't want AI sort of taking over everything. So surely, you're saying it's coming. Surely it's only coming if everybody does it. If we don't do it, then surely the best way to protect against it is for people not to do it.
Unfortunately not. The genie is now out the bottle. For instance, the gas issue situation, the government has said they are going to ban all new petrol and electric cars from 2030. We have got 7 years before that stops. That's now law. They're saying that's going. And if we're not pivoting and if we're not changing now, in 7 years, it's going to go like that. And we're all going to be stuck
everybody says we're not doing that. We don't want this.
No, I'm really sorry, but that's a really small percentage of society that's saying we're not doing that. And it's that percentage of society that will be left behind, I'm afraid. They're not going to be able to pivot. They're not going to be able to cope.
You know, you've just said that
left behind.
Garages are not doing it. Garages are not acting on it. So surely that's the best way to prevent it, is if garages are not doing it.
Well, they just won't have any customers because people will turn up in their Teslas or anything else and they'll say, I'm sorry, I can't deal with batteries.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, guys, I think this is a separate issue. This is more of a thing about the development of various different things that are coming and how they're going to be dealt with in the future. I think if we can get back to the case at hand about here and now, about developing business leaders to be more resilient and stronger right now, that'd be great. So Al, can I get your take on what your business is doing to help develop business leaders right now, totally conscious of the fact that we've got a massively interesting future-based conversation to have, and it could well be a topic we circle back around to in another month, but let's keep it to the here and now for the moment. So Al, tell me how's your business helping with developing business leaders at the moment?
At the moment, we're helping it by working with the teams, whether it's the team at the top of a company, a team somewhere in the middle, a team that's to do with customer support. But as I mentioned before, pretty much everything is based on teams one way or the other in the real world. We use a team coaching approach with that. So let's take a step back for a sec. The person who is the team leader is not necessarily the leader of the team. That sounds a little bit counterintuitive to perhaps, but well, okay, in that case, good. But it's going back to the stuff that we were saying before about people being blinkered and not willing to look outside of that blinkered view. People who think that doing the same thing repeatedly is going to give them a different result. And we know that the end result of that all the time. So if we're working with a team, and let's say it's the executive of a small team, of a smallish company, and if that rain noise is coming through, I apologize, it's very loud.
No, can't hear it, it's fine.
Great. Then we are working not only with the team, the leader of that team, but also the person or persons that team reports to. And we're opening the eyes of all of them in different ways to do with understanding how that team works, how the people within that best perform the functions, because the role that the person has is not necessarily the same as the functions that they perform as well. So it's all about teams. Now, that goes down to encouraging that team to work better with whoever their stakeholders are. That's their stakeholders, maybe another bunch of teams, and so on down the organization.
Yeah.
The point Carl was making about encouraging people lower down an organization to step up and take on more responsibility is part of this whole team approach as well. Because unless we have the people taking the responsibilities that they can, or at least giving it a shot, then we're not developing the people who are going to step up into the roles in those higher teams in the organization and take that company forward in the future. Because we're not just trying to sort it for now, it's an ongoing process that keeps that company ahead, hopefully ahead, at least up to date with what's going on in the market they're going for.
Taking your team with you.
Yeah. And that you, by taking the top team, for sake of argument, you then are taking the next group of teams down the organization. I mean, if a company's 5 people, then your the team is those 5 people, and that's a slightly different kettle of fish. But if you have 250 people, then you're going to have a number of teams. You may have a sort of sales team, a customer support team, depends on what sort of industry you're in. And you need to take them all with you. And that takes leadership. And there's training elements in there. And I'm sure Carl would be a great person to work with in terms of the training elements. But coaching is very much something, because you learn better through coaching than you do from a lot of other things, because you learn the things for yourself as opposed to being told.
No, absolutely.
And do you know what? I'm sorry to jump on the back of that, Alistair, but you just reminded me of a really good saying. We've all heard of the saying where you do the same thing, you get the same results, and it's only those willing to try something different, you get something different. We know that one. Well, now there's a new saying, and I've just popped it in the chat because I think this now highlights as to exactly what today's standards you get from it. And that's naivety, is doing the same thing over and over and always expecting the same result. Well, again, it's that same thing now, which is if we're not willing to change, we're not willing to adapt, doing that same thing is actually going to become less and less as a result, because other people will be taking your business from you. So I just love that speech. Sorry.
Yeah, I have actually seen that one. They're just not good at spelling.
Oh,
that was a Google thing. I can't spell naivety without all those little accents above it. Don't worry about
that. And to be honest, I've seen exactly the same quote with naivety taken out and insanity put into it. It's a quite well known one with insanity as well from that point, which yeah. Sorry, okay. The last question on this is just each of you in turn, your top 3 tips for leaders of small to medium enterprise businesses to build resilience in their staff in these turbulent times? Al, could you go first on that for me? Your top 3 tips.
First tip is don't think in straight lines, because thinking in straight lines doesn't get you anywhere. Second one is your teams are as important as you. Build your teams. And third one is continually think, what if?
Cool. Great. Carl.
I think the 3 biggest things we need to get business owners to realize is make sure you have the right team. If you've got the right team, are you treating them properly? And the last thing is if you are stuck and you don't know how to do it, use a technique, use something that allows you to manage those expectations and needs in your business. And if it's my slap technique to do that, then so be it. But use something that engages and gets people working properly.
That is a great takeaway, actually, because too few leaders of small businesses look beyond what they've currently got. They're too busy focusing, blinkered in, running things. If you need help, look outside. Everyone can help with something. Even if it's talking to someone who's in a similar business as yourself, they're going to have the same issues. They might have a slightly different approach to it. But if you need help, find a coach, find someone else who can help, someone who can put a different slant on it. Yeah, because it could be an hour-long conversation which can set you up for the next 5 years. No, that's fantastic. Listen, we've still got a few minutes, so I will open the floor out to anyone who wants to come in with a question that's kind of relevant to the current resilience and leadership side within businesses. Jill, you seem to momentarily put your hand up there. Did you, or was that no? Okay. So
it was Mark scooting across diagonally across the screen.
Yeah. Mark's actually, he's actually been everywhere on this screen now while I've been on here. It's brilliant. Mark, what did you have? And let's hope your sound's working.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just going back to you, a couple of things. One, I think your strength is your team. And what you have to realize with your team for resilience, are the people in your team in the right seat? You may have a really strong team, but certain people in your team may be in the wrong seat. By that, I mean in the role they're in. So it's about focusing on having everybody in the right seat. That's how you become resilient in my mind.
Getting the right dynamic.
Yeah.
The right collective
agree
dynamic.
with that, mate.
Yeah. I had personal experience of that, where we had to change 2 people's roles, and one of them was fine for it and the other one wasn't. And eventually both of them ended up in the different roles and realized after a few months, but it's a pain barrier to go through. It is incredibly beneficial if you can actually see that and make it happen. Was there anyone else who wanted to mention anything before we close this down for today?
There's bound to be loads of things. Come on, somebody give me a difficult one. Like, what's the spark plug gap?
Carl, actually, we want to move on to the next bit as well, because we do have a limited time. But that's brilliant, and I think we've already got one of the future-based subjects about what's coming around the corner and how we prepare for it. You know, where we've got AI, we've got all of these various different things that we've mentioned within today. So we can put that into possibly June or July's session. I know we've got next month's already sorted, but June or July's, because there is a case for discussing all of that. All I'd like to say for the moment is thanks very much to Carl and Al for your input into that. That's great.